Usborne Young Reading, Stories of Giants. All Kinds of Giants. Chapter 1. There are lots of stories about giants and lots of different giants. Some were quite small, but most were enormous. There were naughty ones, wild ones who liked nothing better than to fight, sad ones who never stopped crying, and kind ones who helped grannies. The first story is about a good giant called a troll. The second tells of 3 wicked giants and how they met a grisly end. Chapter 2. John and the Green Troll. Once there was a poor farmer. His wife was dead. He lived with his only son, John, by the mountains in Scotland. In the spring and summer, John and his father worked hard in the fields. In the autumn, they closed the farm and went down to the sea to fish. But one year, John's father felt too old for the trip. "You will have to go alone," he said to John. "Just remember one thing," he warned. "Don't stop at the big black rock. That's where the trolls live." As John drove up a rocky mountain path, the sky grew dark. Then a storm blew up. Lightning flashed and thunder growled. John wanted his dad. At last he saw a big black rock. "Oh, I can shelter there," he thought. John had forgotten his father's warning. He was just glad to be out of the storm. He sat down outside a cave. "Time for supper," he said to himself, and unpacked his sack. He had bread, cheese, an apple, and a very big fish. Suddenly, John heard a noise coming from inside the cave. He was so scared he stopped chewing. He could hear voices, babies' voices. "Wah!" they cried. "We're hungry." John quickly picked up the fish and cut it in half. He threw both halves into the cave. The crying stopped at once. "Phew," said John. "Thank goodness for that." He was almost asleep when a giant shadow fell over him. John looked up. A troll! A troll was coming for him. Now he remembered his father's warning, but it was too late. The troll came over to John and picked him up. He shook with terror. This was his first fishing trip alone, and he was the one to be caught. But the troll was gentle. "Don't be scared," she said. "I want to thank you for feeding my children." The troll took John into her cave and looked after him. She even gave him her children's bed. It was lumpy, but John slept well. The next morning, after breakfast, the troll waved John off. "Take these magic fishing hooks," she said. "When you reach the sea, look for an old man called Charlie. You must go fishing with him." "Thank you," said John. "I will." John did just as the troll had said. He found Charlie in an old hut by the beach. "Will you come fishing with me?" asked John. "Are you sure?" said Charlie. "I'm the worst fisherman in the world. I never catch anything." Charlie showed John his boat. It was full of holes and falling to pieces. "Don't worry," said John. "I can soon fix that." He set to work with some tar and planks of wood. Soon the boat was as good as new. "Let's row to that pointed rock," John said to Charlie. They put worms on the magic hooks and started to fish. "Hey!" John cried. A few seconds later, "I've caught one." "So have I," shouted Charlie. They couldn't believe their luck. The boat was full of fish. The other fishermen couldn't believe it either. John told them to fish near the pointed rock, but when they tried, they didn't catch a thing. Every day for the entire winter, John's magic hooks caught hundreds of fish. Every day, John and Charlie cleaned the fish and hung them up to dry. They had more fish than all the other fishermen put together. When spring came, it was time for John to go home. On the way, he visited the troll and gave her half his fish. "Thank you," she said. "One day you'll have a dream about me. When you do, you must come back to my cave." Back at home, John helped his father on the farm. A year later, he had a dream about the troll, just as she had said. He quickly left for her cave without telling his father where he was going. At last, he reached the cave. He peered inside. "Hello," he called. "Is anybody home?" There was no answer. John crept into the cave. It was empty except for 2 chests. "Are they for me?" John wondered. What could be inside? He put the chest on his cart and took them home. When he opened them, he found piles of treasure and gold. John and his father were so rich, they never had to work again. Chapter 3. The Princess and the Giants. On the edge of a gloomy wood, 3 giants were eating their dinner. These giants were gigantic. They were eating meat as big as rocks. Their spoons were like shovels, and their forks were big enough to dig a garden. But someone was secretly watching them. His name was Sam, and he was a hunter. "I'm going to have some fun with these giants," he said. Taking aim, he fired his gun at the fork of the fattest giant. Sam's gun made the giant jump. He poked the fork into his chin. "Oh!" he yelled. "Who did that?" Sam tried to hide, but he wasn't quick enough. The giant spotted him. He jumped up and grabbed Sam. "Ha ha! Now you're in trouble, boy," he roared. "Unless you help us," he added. "We want the princess from the king's castle. You can get her." How?" squeaked Sam. He was terrified. "Oh, we'll show you," the giant said. He laughed. The giants picked up Sam and took him to the castle. "Everyone's asleep," they told him. "We put a spell on them, but the dog is still awake. You must shoot him." They pushed Sam through a tiny window. The castle dog trotted up to Sam, wagging his tail. He didn't bark once. He was a very friendly dog. "How could I shoot you?" asked Sam, patting him. Sam decided he wasn't going to help the giants. "I think I'll explore the castle," he said. In one room, Sam found the princess. He thought she was beautiful. He gazed at her for a long, long time. Then he tiptoed out. Next, he found a room with a sword hanging on the wall. There was a golden cup beside the sword with writing on it. "Drink this and you will save the princess with the magic sword. Read him." Sam was excited. Perhaps he could save the princess from those horrible giants. He tried a sip of the drink. He drank some more. Soon he'd finished. "Now for the sword," said Sam. He gave a big tug and felt it move. Just a little. He tried again. This time it came out in a rush. "Ha ha," said Sam. "Now to get those giants." Downstairs, the giants were knocking at the door. "Let us in," they bellowed. "You're too big and the door's too small," said Sam. "Never mind that," yelled the giants. "Open this door now." "Okay," said Sam, and he hid behind the door. As the giants crawled in, he chopped off their heads. The princess was saved. But Sam began to worry. The king might not like people using his sword. He could be in big trouble, so he ran away. Back in the castle, the giant spell soon wore off. The soldiers woke up. They stared at the dead giants. Could it really be true? The castle buzzed with excitement. The giants were dead at last. But who had killed them? The king saw that his sword has gone, too. It was a mystery. The princess was happiest of all. She dreamed of the handsome hero who had saved her. "Please find him for me, Daddy," she begged. So the king built an inn. A sign above the door read, "Anyone who tells his life story may stay here for free." A year later, Sam passed by. He went inside and told his tale. The king was overjoyed to meet the man who'd killed the giants. His daughter was so excited she married Sam that very day. Everyone was invited to the wedding except giants. None of the other giants would have gone anyway. They were far too scared of Sam. The end.